To commemorate, I made the thing top 13 ways to forget 9/11. So hold on. To commemorate, I made the top 13 ways to forget 9/11. Because forgetting is actually the beginning of healings of certain traumas. To never, oh god, never forget is to kind of relive it, or as a way to channel those wounds into something else that's not something you might not agree with. So this is an attempt to co-opt that, co-opt. I don't know. Co-opt the cooptation. I don't know. So, okay, girls, if you want to get rid of yourself not only of those pounds but also those memories of being caked with ash as you tried to head to work anyway, here's some tips to help kickstart the healthy human quirk of forgetfulness. Lucky 13 of them. Let's go. 13. Life begins after 9/11. Sometimes the way to win a game is not to play. As it is with nuclear war, so it is with just not being at 9/11. Kudos to those parents who sired their children after that date. You rock. Look at you, holding off the sex from despair and just reaching out to your loved ones who couldn't call out of the city. Your post-9/11 child is wrapping up their late teens with a bang. Literally. 12. Cope. Just anything. Once. Actions you can repeat later. Only. Okay? You got me? 11. Take a walk, like I'm doing right now. Have a little encounter with your psychogeography, as the situationists describe it. Go outside and get lost, but forget you have your cell phone and see if you can find your way back. You might also find something you lost deep within those wrinkles, metaphorically. Spoiler. I hope it's a memory you haven't visited in a while. Sounds like a threat. And these are the 3 things that I use to help feed the character of what I want outputted. So, here we go. Number 10, get married. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Number 10, oh, you know what, I just need to do this again. Sensible mouth once again. And then, no. And then, I'll do for that. That's the max. Now, we can go. It may well come as a pleasant surprise. No. Oh, okay. Oh, I should just do number 10. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It may even lead you down a street you never walked upon before. But be sure you're wearing pants. That was my perfect towel. 10, eat breakfast. There are 2 things about eating food for dinner. 1, it tastes good. And 2, it will put more weight on you and give you face that extra bit of Z's from lack of oxygen in the brain. So don't be a dick and do this one every night or the day before. Number 9, get a dog. If there ever was a moment for the animal to come through when all else fails, let's admit, the world could go away. Okay, come on. Oh! Crossing street! Crossing street. Alright. Gotta... Hold on, crossing another street. Alright, number 9, get a dog. If there was ever a moment for the animal to come through when all else fails. And let's admit, the world could be going tits up, and you wouldn't know it because it wasn't happening in your neighborhood, then that would be the moment. But what happens when your beloved mutt gets sick and you decide to live on the other side of the world, like many did after 9/11? What? Poor those people who lived right near the tsunami. That means it's time to start researching breeders. And then maybe it's a matter of saving some money and getting yourself a cat. But you know what? You've had it tough, right, Ray? You don't need you need a friend right now, not a cat. And a new family member needs an attentive owner, so especially a pet that lets the taste of human flesh and has no problem attacking a stranger who tries to feed him treats. So get that dog. Let's see. Number 8, don't read about the tragedy or any kind of history. Seems obvious, but if there's something to remember, it'll always come back, like those people in New Orleans who thought they'd been flooded, but really the whole thing happened long ago, and you're the dumbass who didn't realize it.
Never.
It is easy to think about how bad the situation was that night when the planes hit. That night? Or whatever else was happening around the world. Or maybe in that neighborhood. That will change soon. The news stories won't tell you the story anymore. And if you try to look for yourself, you're going to feel like you have amnesia. That's how bad it got. And so shut your computer or phone down until you can figure out and come to terms with the fact that you didn't die. During that horrific night, and everything will be okay. Then open up and see what life is like again. It's easier done than said. 7, keep the windows closed. This is for a couple of reasons. The first of which is being the reason most people have given, maybe because, fear. You're afraid of air travel, and now you have every right to that fear and make it turn into anger, and make everyone around you aware. However, if we look closer at why people keep their windows shut, there are 2 big reasons that are actually very selfish. Number 1, within 0.7, if you can avoid it, you probably shouldn't, as your carbon dioxide count increases and you are less fit. But the main thing, though, is a desire to protect against another attack. So many times people say, well, it's not like it ever came close, and yet it felt close, and you want the assurance, however false it may be, of keeping the door closed at all costs. Just like you did back then. Number 6. Write letters to your friends. Not only does it remind them how much you love their letters and that, in some ways it helps you move on with the days and forget what it was to see their name and picture every time you turned around. And also, also get to share how it's okay, even great, that there are other ways to express the way your feelings are. And you can write it and throw it out if you don't have enough time for the postage, because it doesn't cost a dime, and who knows? They may find your letter in a box in 20 years and wonder how someone could have sent it, and they may find a copy and be touched by the message inside. 5, take care of business. Get work done, or go visit the parents or whoever it is. Just don't get involved with other people, okay? Other people. Like, one of them. We can only deal with the ones right in front of us, and you know it makes you a coward, or at least that's the perception the other guy might have, to be in touch and talk to people and have something other than just a I hate your guts conversation going. Because if that's your baseline, get some work done. Go home. Take your kids out for a movie. Play with the dogs. But stay in. If you can't find any way not to go and see, then you can find one, or maybe a few to make you do so. Do not go and see. Don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. Out of mind, out of pain. 4. Make a scrapbook. Again, the idea of keeping memories is good, and it helps your brain work like ours, where memories seem more important than others. But you can have other ways. A diorama. A memory trophy shelf. I recommend making a scrapbook and keeping your old photos and clippings from newspapers, magazines, or online news sites or ransom notes that have been around since before you can remember, and the date 9/11 comes up in the text. It may help your mind to see how quickly those memories can fade. If nothing else, it will serve as a visual reminder and help you not lose your way back to those dark days. Number 3, be thankful. Oops. Trying to oust the copyrighted material. Or it's a commercial, so it's fine. This is hard to do. Be thankful. We have this instinctual tendency that tells our brains when in crisis that we must be thankful, grateful, what? And give thanks, really? Because what better gift could God have for us people? Instinctual tendency, really. You'll find that you do. But if there are any doubts or concerns, take this opportunity to be glad and be sure and specific. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. You don't know this. We're trying to disrupt the algorithm that's identifying the song so that it doesn't flag this as, let's go turn this corner. Okay. Lord. This is very Twitch unfriendly streets. You'll find that you do. But if there are any doubts or concerns, take this opportunity to be glad. Be sure and be specific about your gratefulness. Gratefulness. It's easy to say, oh, it was a terrible night. Why is it still a night? I couldn't imagine what I would have done without my cell phone and being so cold, etc. And if those things were true for you, then certainly were for others. Be sure you're saying what happened in the neighborhood or town or even in the school and what made it difficult to function and the like, but that also you're saying that is okay. If you feel you cannot say it, then think about what you could have written, but never found the courage to. Maybe something about your neighbor who lost his job because he stayed home and worked on the family computer while everyone else went to the grocery. Something about a friend whose husband got killed by falling from a ladder while he was fixing their fence. Anything. But if you cannot be positive and you're afraid to say, just give thanks for what was, because that's all we can really know. That the world did somehow survive, and people like those people in the photograph above survived, or that the planet you sat in, the plane you sat in wasn't hit by the other planes that were. 2, keep a diary. Sorry. That I'm sure was not in any way DCable. DCMA. My apologies to Radiohead. Okay, it's pretty much like a blog. You write your entries, put it out there, but make it anonymous so you can't be found and called out as an attention seeker or whatever. I used to write these entries every morning after I got out of bed about how much it was raining and whether or not the firemen and cops would come to the rescue to the neighbors, and if they did, how they acted, and if they looked like the news said they should. Like the news said they should. Okay, so, I was a young boy and the news didn't show people with big muscles who didn't look afraid. There were always helicopters. And that's why when the towers came down that afternoon, there we go. It didn't really occur to me that it had anything to do with us. I thought that people in faraway lands where the buildings were higher would die and that the sky was black with smoke and fire. And filled with muscly people who did not show weakness. Wait a minute. Oh, that's fine. I didn't have to be near the towers for that to happen, so I'm okay. Number 1, don't go back. You know it. You feel it. The moment has passed and you can go home and live your life again. And if you're not doing that now, it's time to start. Continue. A different way of living. Which might mean that the past, that night, everything before, afterward, it's not your home anymore. Turn that corner. Nope. If it still is, that's fine. Like, if it still is, that's fine. Stay there. It will change eventually, and maybe not, but it doesn't have to, and that's all you need to just go. Bonus. If the idea of a scrapbook seems overwhelming to you, try something more modest, but with some impact. Ooh. Pun not intended. Create a small piece of art or poetry, or you can simply sit and reflect. For some, writing about the incident may not be the right move, especially since emotions are so high. Others will have some way of making sense out of it. Write a note, draw a picture, record it, do whatever it takes to help you make meaning out of the events. Hang a flag that's from the colonial times. For a more detailed version on how you could use this exercise, read my book, A New Life After the End Times. Note to readers, these ideas and thoughts are offered as suggestions, inspiration, and guidance, as the reader must ultimately be the judge and implement the suggestions in their own time. No liability is accepted or assumed for the implementation of any or all the suggestions contained in. This entry concludes a new series that I didn't know had begun. I started it because of the 9/11 attacks that NYC occurred on Thursday. Following Monday, after a full day of school and then working, we were supposed to go on an optional excursion to some local amusement park for those of us who live close enough to get there in a reasonable amount of time. We lived 20 miles from the closest entrance, or maybe it was 10, when my friends and I left school around 3 p.m. For the drive to the park, no cars or people were out in the street when the exits were located. When we reached them, they were locked up by the police, as well as other people who appeared to have been alerted by the authorities or perhaps a neighbor. were standing there and checking everyone going inside. As we walked through the doors, I looked to see if I recognized anyone from our school, and none that I did. Oh, we're back at the copyrighted material. Because yeah. Sorry. Trying to mask the lyrics because I don't want the algorithm to identify a song. As we walked through the doors, I looked to see if I recognized everyone from our school, saw that none did. We were all stunned, though. My friend Mark was in my grade, but he'd moved away and I hadn't spoken to him since. He never mentioned that he and a couple other students had planned on skipping the day's trip and hanging around the school just to do what they normally did when classes were canceled, which is play video games or watch TV. So this sudden event and how the school was acting in response to it was a bit surprising to me, as was the behavior and attitudes of others we encountered. As we rode the elevator down and out to the parking lot and waited there while the bus arrived, I realized I didn't know if there would be a next class period or if there was a final bell. It felt odd not having to worry if a particular teacher or student was nearby to help with my assignments. And it was announced that the classes were canceled, the school was quickly evacuated, and the remaining students, myself included, walked home. That first evening, after I went over what I could remember and what others might know or be told later on, I was surprised to realize just how many people in our neighborhood, even beyond my immediate social circle, seemed to know what was happening. But the rest was, to say the least, strange. People, including those I considered good neighbors or people I would consider to share a beer, had either changed or they acted strangely, almost like robots who had been pre-programmed for the specific action that was taking place. And then there was the news reports. All the stations were carrying the story, and all of it was the same, only changing in that each one used the phrase terrorist attack. Use the phrase terrorist attack.
Nice to meet you, Barbara.
Of course you are. So the following day we were back at the elementary school to finish the week with the usual activities. And there it was again. The police, fire, ambulances, the mayor's press conference, and this stuff. All that were crazy enough. There came an announcement that we could all use cell phones. That's how people found out that there was no longer an emergency. So we're back at that fucking place. Okay, we got to hear how a man named John Smith, who said he worked for AT&T and was a supervisor, told the reporters to turn their cell phone ringer off. And we were told to call the emergency, which most of us had done anyway. And finally, it dawned on me how stupid it all was, and why the police and firefighters were called. If I knew about it beforehand, I would have done the same, and so should everyone who else was on the cell phone. Anachronism. I don't think it was a cell phone back then. I didn't have to wait to see what would happen before calling. I could have used it to tell everyone what was really going on and to help prevent something similar in the future. So why did that happen? And I think the answer lies in this old question. What if someone tells you the wrong thing and you don't want to know what's real? Maybe people were so caught up in their fear that it overwhelmed the bitter judgment and allowed a small voice in the back of their minds that told them they might be missing out on some sort of valuable information that they refused to listen to it. In fact, some people didn't seem interested in listening, but instead wanted to get home to look at the news on TV. After school, we gathered and went our own ways. It seemed like all those involved were going about the same things. If I had to wonder if anyone thought that a second such incident would occur in a city that, at least according to my history textbook, was the birthplace of a civilization, that would happen to someone in another part of a country, but that was it. We didn't have anything to compare it to. Yeah, you did. We watched a few more of the news programs, and then some other other channels. Some people went to their homes, others stayed and tried to watch the events unfold on television. The more we saw, the worse I thought it looked. What happened was someone, probably terrorists or small group of terrorists, who would be crazy enough to take on that kind of risk, had flown planes into buildings. In addition to that, I'd also learned from my classmates and friends about the people on board the two flights and how the people who lived near them died or disappeared. Passengers and the ones on board, I heard from different students. The plane that hit the North Tower had 175 people on board, all adults, and the rest, mostly men and women between the ages of 20 and 40 years of age, died instantly along with the people on the street below. On the other flight, which was supposed to land in Pennsylvania and make a loop, we were to fly over Manhattan again before landing. The number of people landing, the number of people aboard was not made public. I doubt that. Doubting that. Oh. However, I did hear from a student that lived near the site about his mom. She worked for Delta Airlines, and then when the jet flew overhead, she and her coworkers had run outside with the others they were in contact with and started waving to the pilot. He was flying too high, and there were too many clouds and rain, however, to spot them. It was a clear day, right? As I recall. But the other planes had seen them, so it was clear that a mistake had been made. And the people that saw that happen said they were screaming, trying to attract the pilot's attention, but they had already pulled up, lost speed, and began to descend and hit the building. They all perished on impact, and there was no hope for those on the plane either. It crashed into a residential building where many families live. Okay, alternate universe. Alternate universe. The news reported that it was in the middle of a row of apartment buildings, and that all that were left of them were pieces of metal and concrete that lay in the middle of the street, and, charred bodies, pools of blood. A young woman I knew had gone to the school, someone I meant to, and told me about the fire that engulfed the area. Her family lives in one of the nearby apartments, and then the last time I listened to a report, they announced that there was an emergency situation and asked us to stay off the streets. So now it was the following Tuesday, nearly 3 weeks after the attack on the World Trade Center, and everyone I included, knew about what happened and was in a daze as we prepared for the day, but no one really talked about what had happened. At least not around the water cooler or anyplace else. Everyone seemed to know what had taken place in the last week and what would likely be going on in the days ahead, so I didn't see the need to mention it either. The only exception was my parents. My mother told me, "Son, I want you to promise to call your grandparents today and let them know what's going on. And my father said something similar. Because we don't want to do that. Of course, delegate it to your kids. But then in my own house, and even among the few of my friends that knew the subject of the attacks on WCC and what had all experienced in that day was rarely discussed, there's some jokes about the incident, and we talked as though the whole thing had happened and that there would be a third attack that very night. That was the plan, as we had decided before leaving for the bus stop that morning. We had heard the announcement, seen the news on television, and the report said it would happen again that evening at 6 p.m. Well, how good of them. And the weather forecast said that it was expected to start snowing. As a matter of fact, it had. So we decided to head for the local bar, grab the beers, sit inside, sit and drink. In elementary school, right? I was in elementary school. Since it looked like a nice night, it would have been the perfect day to spend hanging out and talking about the times tables. Have some brews. Talk about conjugation. It would have been the perfect day to spend hanging out and talking. Instead, we all ended up doing what everyone else seemed to do and headed home to watch TV, check the news, talk about what had occurred in New York, and speculate if we'd see something similar in the coming weeks or months, maybe even in other parts of the country, including ours. That had always been the case and would probably be so again in the near future. The following Monday, we were back at school. The first bell went off. Went off? First bell went off, and we walked in. The halls were quiet, but the feeling of uneasiness lingered, and it didn't help to have everyone wearing sunglasses. The news reported that another group of suspected terrorists had set up shop in Iraq, and that they might try to bring some of the weapons and supplies we saw being used by, some of him into this country with his bare hands. He was using the weapons with his bare hands. And we saw, we made an artist's rendition. They were also looking to acquire a large number of nuclear warheads and to make sure that all the U.S. missiles in our silos were destroyed before we did, so that the threat would go away and that they would end any plans to bomb or invade other countries, particularly if it involved killing their own people. But they were going to use chemical and biological agents instead. My history teacher had a new book out, and she assigned to the students to read the entire text. Opportunist. Making elementary school children read. Okay. Let's have an episode based on her. I picked it, of course, because it was how life changed dramatically in the last 10 years of the 20th century, from a world that had become very comfortable, peaceful, safe, to one filled with violence and chaos. Because flannel. From a world that, in a classroom discussion, we were reminded of what it was like before 9/11 and how much worse things got in after. You know, because all our dreams involved oxygen bars. In virtual reality with blonde people being God. Some were concerned that people wouldn't want the changes they'd gone through, but that for the most part it was good that they were there. The change brought about some positive effects too. I think people became a lot more conscious and sensitive to others, and that led to better understanding between different groups and cultures. And people were forced to deal with each other and not simply be on their own as they once did. Okay. Alright, let's have your digital rainbows and soupy unicorns. Oh god. Yep. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, god, fuck you. I remember when I lived in Florida, oh god, of course, a man who came to visit and stayed with us had a small farm in his pocket. We had never known he was gay and that he was a member of a group that did certain things with his partner, which is the way I learned about the word lesbian. After I met his friend who shared his interest in women and the female body, the lesbian, I began to realize how lucky I was, but I still thought it was strange. It wasn't something anyone should hide. You had to learn it. You had to go to Florida. That was the only place that was valid. But I still thought it was strange. It wasn't something anyone should hide. And in spite of what I just wrote, it's change that took place in our world after that horrible attack have made it easier for those who had such feelings and didn't act upon them. That's what's yellow. The ones who were already like me were happy, and no one could blame them for what happened to the other people or what they might think. What? That's a leap. But the fact that the news stations broadcast the images of people screaming and running around, holding hands, hugging, kissing, it was clear to all that the attacks had impacted everyone, even the people in my class. You know, in the end, we could make it about us. They had gone through it themselves, seen people they knew. They carried around something. Nah. Shock was immense. No one wanted to talk about that. And I couldn't either. I had no one to talk about that, what had occurred in the previous week and how I felt ever been. I was alone. So we were told that the president would be giving an address to the nation the following day. It would be on television, the same one they showed us. That was going on. Yeah, because the school can only really afford one. Oh, wait, did I go back? Oh, yeah, no. The speech had the same sort of effect that I would have imagined, given what I know of him and the things that he says and what I've heard others say about him. Especially those who oppose what he does and what his administration has done since coming out. That's the most biggest thing to talk about a president ever. And it was like a little past 6, and the day was getting darker as it got later. Most students were in class, while some had stayed in their classrooms. And a few, me included, went down to the school basement to, do our normal nuclear war drills. The room where all the lockers are located is usually deserted. Not today. I don't know if anyone felt the need to do what everyone else was doing and head for home and wait for the event. We stood in line listening to people talk. Everyone had their earbuds on. Or one guy in front of me said he had them on so you wouldn't miss anything. It was when the announcement started to play. There was no doubt about it. Someone must have set up the sound system in there for the occasion. I'd been expecting that something like this would happen. Attention please, all high school students. Please remain in your seats. I'm in elementary school, said the male voice that came from the speakers. The national security team, as a precaution against possible terrorist activity, the president will speak live to the nation for the entire country. This is a little too much pageantry there. Kids. Listen. It's not only limited to you students. We're going to keep talking until the announcement ends, and then we will go to a special news conference to discuss what has taken place over the last few days. At the conclusion of that news conference, we'll take you questions. You all will be on camera. You all will be representing the nation. So, you have a lot to talk about. I know that you probably feel the same. We'll be going to commercial break shortly. This time will be brief, but then the national address from the Oval Office in 2 hours. Again, for everyone in America, it's the White House. Time is 6:07 p.m. Central Standard Time, Tuesday, September 10th, 2007. That's the twist there. You thought it was this, but it was this. We all turned and walked away from our chairs, leaving the door open and walking up the hallway to get out of the building. A few people stopped and talked, but we kept going, headed to the schoolyard, and there were more than 50 of us standing there. Then we heard, through the wind and the snow that fell and covered us, that a black Suburban came slowly up the driveway out of the school. It stopped right behind our bus. What happened to the comments, the address? I remember hearing the crunch of gravel and seeing a white light as if someone was turning the spotlight in that direction. Then after about 30 seconds, the driver got out of the vehicle wearing sunglasses. He opened the door and walked toward us. As he neared the front, the door to the bus slid open and out stepped the principal. He looked tired, almost haggard. What did they do to him? Mr. Hunt. And I guess he knew that everyone knew it too. We stood there for a minute looking around, not sure what was going to come next, except that it had better be good. He spoke first in a loud voice, which seemed unnecessary. Thank you all for waiting here. We appreciate the way you've all responded. I know you're shocked by this last week. We as a community will respond to these events. The best thing to do, and I know I'm repeating myself and saying the obvious, and I'm also reminding you that you can expect an outpouring of sympathy and prayers in the coming days. The nation will stand together and support each other. And we're not the only one who will stand united and strong. Many around the world will be doing the same. It won't always be easy. It's 2077 after all. We've been at this for a few fucking decades. I've been told that it will be some time before life in our great city returns to normal. We may have lost people, somewhat families. We will, I hope, find ways to deal with the terrible situation that took place. But the future will look brighter in the present, and I have faith in the resilience of our citizens. I'm proud of the way we've handled this crisis, especially during such difficult times. Our country, as well as throughout the world, will never forget what has happened. I would like to thank each and every one of you who were part of this class for being here and standing with me. The students who didn't make it to the class today because they had to be in another location, and for those teachers and parents and relatives and friends, many of whom were watching. They will all, of course, be praying for us, just as they do in other places, and just as people all over the globe are. They will, as I will. Keep thinking of those brave people who have been hurt and who will suffer for the rest of their lives. The rest of my speech was very general. Did nothing to ease our fears. And there wasn't much I could say to all of us. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't intended to do that either, but the words helped. I felt better, although the anxiety was still there, as it would continue to be quite a while. The principal said something to me about the weather conditions, the snow. I believed he said it had become a blizzard. We stood waiting until he was finished, and we heard him say, "That'll be it for now, thank you." And we were led into the bus. I sat near the window in a seat I had been in many times when there was a meeting that involved students, faculty, staff, and the school administration. I saw Mr. Copley get in and the door closed. He turned the key, locked it, sat down. After that, I noticed we weren't going to be getting any news on our radios or even in the hallways for the time being. There were several announcements on some of the news channels. One of them at the schools in the area, including the junior high school that my friend attended. We're closed and we'll be back Monday. As usual, my history teacher had a copy of his new book that he had read the previous weekend. He was reading it aloud, very inappropriately. I got to see it the day after that and then asked if I could borrow it. It was a hardback edition. My copy of the first edition, when the school library had the newest titles, was the same. All books published before the last 2 decades of the 20th century were paper-based, with ink and print on actual pages. This one contained a CD-ROM. Oof. 2077, a CD-ROM. That's how bad it got. That's why instead of carrying a thick old volume to and from school, he had stored it in his office at home, and whenever the opportunity arose, borrowed the necessary items from his computer, which had a wireless connection to a library server. He explained to me how it worked, and that it made great reading easier, especially for someone who didn't enjoy the printed word. Okay. And also included is Encarta. When the book had a CD attached, it meant there were information, video clips, movies, and sometimes sound files that came with the book, which I could play on our home computer, a Mac. This particular volume about a woman and her adventures during the Vietnam War and in South America and Europe afterwards included those and other visuals, and a centerfold. 3 centerfolds. When we got to the end of class, I decided to leave school a few minutes early. If I stayed, I might be in the line, and the line to get to our cars would be too long. I wanted to check the mailbox and get to the house before everyone else, and then maybe a quick walk in the snow before going home just to warm up. It had gotten a little colder since I'd come inside. Denouement. As I was walking across the driveway and into a road, there was no one to talk to, and I began to wonder if I'd done the right thing by leaving. I wondered if everyone, like me, had a different opinion of what would be happening that night. I knew what I thought was the president in a public address was trying to reassure us that he was taking everything under control. This is getting... But there were a lot of people out there who probably didn't think so. They had a reason for believing that what was happening in one form or another all around the globe was not only the worst, but possibly the beginning of a series of worse things to come. I had never heard anyone predict that this world, which is supposed to be so advanced, had such a problem that people were willing to do something like that to each other or to children and young people. They must have believed it, and it wouldn't have been very hard to refute, and then to add to the fear, they could just look at the television and hear it played back in every language imaginable. There are people, of course, who will say that it was all a mistake. They don't have the power to make those kind of decisions, not now, in this world anyway. Oh, I'm getting tired. That's on the hill down there. As I walked toward our house, I had the idea maybe this would be the best way to spend my afternoon. To try to write down what I knew about the world, to the extent that it existed, what I could remember, what was important. So I went to the dining room table, pulled over the laptop and turned it on. I opened the file and tried, but it wasn't easy. I wrote for 10 minutes or more, pausing frequently, looking for a place where I could begin, maybe go on. And then when the cursor didn't seem likely to move any further,